The glass door slammed so hard that the entire bank fell silent. Outside, rainwater rushed across the pavement as Bisi Adeyemi dropped beside the woman Dare Coker had just thrown out. Blood ran from the woman's heel. Bisi pulled off her only pair of black work shoes. Take them, Ma. Dare stormed through the doorway, his ruby tie swinging. Have you lost your mind? He shouted. You abandoned my banking hall for this roadside stranger? You were hired to remove dirt, not carry it on your head. Every customer stared. The woman lifted her soaked face. My name is Zainab Bello. Dare laughed. Borrow a richer name next time. Bisi stood barefoot in the rain, unaware she had just given her only shoes to the new group CEO of that same bank. By the next morning, one hidden recording, 23 buried complaints, and one forged report would drag Dare's cruelty into the light. Do not leave this story halfway. Subscribe now and tell us your city or country and the local time where you are listening. Because when Zainab returned through those doors, nobody was ready. That Friday had begun with glue. At 5:36 in the morning, Bisi sat on the edge of her narrow bed in Jakande, holding the sole of her left shoe open with one thumb while squeezing the last line of adhesive into the gap. The small room was still dark. Electricity had gone sometime after midnight, and the rechargeable lamp beside her mattress had only one weak bar left. A plastic bucket stood near the door. Two neatly folded uniforms rested on a chair with one broken leg. Bisi pressed the shoe between her knees and counted slowly. 1, 2, 3. By 30, her fingers had started aching. The shoes were not beautiful. They had never been beautiful. They were black, round at the toes, and one size wider than what she normally wore. But they were closed shoes, and the contractor's handbook said every cleaning staff member assigned to a corporate branch must wear black closed shoes with no visible damage. Visible damage. That was the important part. The right shoe had a crack near the heel, hidden by black polish. The left one had been repaired 3 times. Inside both shoes, Bisi had placed thin pieces of carton beneath the insoles so that water would not enter too quickly when rain covered the roads. She owned a pair of blue bathroom slippers. She owned brown rubber sandals with one stretched strap. But those black shoes were the only pair that could carry her through the doors of Crest Point Bank without somebody sending her home. Bisi released the sole and tested it. It held. For today, she murmured. On the wall above her mattress, a sheet of paper had been pinned with a bent safety pin. She had written her savings at the top. New work shoes. Under it were figures added over 3 months. 1,000 naira. 800. 2,000. 500. The total had reached 11,940 naira before she paid 2,700 for the final registration fee of her Customer Service Foundation course. What remained was 9,240 naira. The shoes she wanted at the market cost 18,000. Bisi looked at the figures, then at the repaired shoe. I am managing, she told herself. She dressed in her pale aqua uniform shirt and charcoal trousers. Over the shirt, she tied the burnt orange apron issued by the contractor. The color made her visible from one end of the banking hall to the other, which was useful when somebody wanted a spill cleaned and less useful when somebody wanted a poor worker to disappear. By 6:47, Bisi was inside a Danfo heading towards Lekki Eep Expressway. Traffic had already started building. Conductors shouted destinations. Horns answered one another like angry relatives. The morning sky carried a thick gray color, but nobody inside the bus trusted Lagos weather enough to discuss it. BC arrived at Crest Point Bank at 7:38. Samuel Okoro, the security guard on morning duty, looked at her shoes before checking her identity card. You have repaired them again, he said. BC followed his eyes. Is it showing? Not yet. Then allow today to pass first. Samuel shook his head. My sister, one day these shoes will retire before you. If they retire, will you employ me at the gate? With which connection? Samuel asked. They both laughed quietly. That was how people like Bisi and Samuel survived the building. Small jokes. Shared water. Warnings whispered before managers arrived. At 7:51, Dare Coker entered through the staff door. His charcoal suit sat perfectly on his shoulders. His white shirt was stiff. A ruby red tie rested against his chest, and the gold face of his watch flashed each time he moved his wrist. He smelled of expensive perfume and impatience. Dare had managed the Lecky Eat branch for 3 years. In those 3 years, he had raised deposit figures, attracted property developers, and built a reputation for keeping the branch clean. Clean did not only mean polished floors. To Dare, clean meant no hawkers under the canopy, no dispatch riders sitting near the entrance, no elderly customers taking too long at the counter, no market women opening nylon bags inside the air-conditioned hall, no contract worker speaking when permanent staff were present. He stopped in the center of the lobby and turned slowly. Why is that banner bending? Titty Johnson, the operations supervisor, hurried from behind the customer service desk. Her bright purple blazer made her stand out against the cream walls. Under it, she wore an emerald blouse and a smile that appeared whenever Dare entered. Good morning, sir. The vendor fixed it yesterday, but the air from the vent is disturbing the left side. Dare stared at the banner. Customer dignity weak. Every customer deserves dignity. The words were printed in cobalt blue above photographs of smiling people from different professions. Dare squeezed his face. The group's CEO may come tomorrow. I do not want anything looking cheap. We will fix it, sir. And the entrance? Clean. The ATM area? Clean. The cracked acrylic beside the sign? TD paused. The lower edge of the outdoor promotional board had broken earlier that week when a delivery trolley struck it. A sharp corner remained exposed near the pavement. Bisi had reported it on Wednesday. Samuel had written it in the safety log. The technician said Monday, sir. Dare waved one hand. Cover it with the flower stand before tomorrow. Bisi, who was wiping fingerprints from the glass partition, looked towards the entrance. Sir, she said carefully, the broken side is still near where customers pass. Maybe we should move the board away until Monday. Dare turned. His eyes traveled from her face to her apron, then to the mop bucket beside her. Did I ask for a facility report from you? No, sir. I only thought that is the problem. You, people are always thinking beyond your level. Face what is paying you. Bisi lowered her eyes. Yes, sir. Dare looked at Samuel. Tomorrow is important. From this afternoon, nobody should be loitering under the bank sign. No roadside sellers. No people coming to enjoy air conditioning. No wet clothes inside my lobby if rain starts. This is a premium branch, not a public shelter. Samuel shifted his weight. Sir, if they are customers. Customers carry identification and money. Use your judgment. That sentence would return before the day ended. At 9:15, the branch opened to customers. Bisi moved between the toilets, lobby, offices, and ATM area. She cleaned coffee spilled by a property consultant who did not look at her. She picked tissue from beneath a chair after a woman told her, "That is your work." She wiped rain marks from the glass even though rain had not yet started. At 11:07, Dare gathered the staff for a rehearsal of his Customer Dignity Week speech. He stood beneath the banner and read from a tablet. At Crest Point Bank, every person who enters our doors deserves respect, patience, and professional care. Dignity is not a privilege, it is our culture. Bisi was cleaning the brass strip near his shoes. Dare stopped. Must you make noise now? The vacuum is not on, sir. Your bucket is making noise. Bisi held the handle still. Dare continued. We do not judge customers by appearance, social class, or account balance. We serve human beings. Titi clapped when he finished. The others joined. Bisi looked at the words on the banner. Dignity is not a privilege. She wondered who had written them. At 1:20 in the afternoon, the sky darkened. By 2:05, wind began pushing dust across the expressway. Street vendors tied nylon sheets over their goods. Drivers hurried to close windows. The clouds looked heavy enough to fall. At 3:48, Zainab Bello left a meeting with a cooperative of women traders in San Gotedo. She was 52, tall, and calm in the way of people who had spent many years being underestimated and no longer wasted energy announcing themselves. She wore a cream dress beneath a mustard scarf. Her jewelry was simple. Her official identification card sat inside the leather bag on the rear seat of the bank vehicle. Zainab had become Group Chief Executive Officer of Crest Point Bank 16 days earlier, after the bank completed a difficult merger. The announcement had circulated internally, but her public profile had not yet been fully updated. Most staff members knew her name. Few at branch level knew her face well. Her driver, a quiet man from the executive transport pool, was taking her back towards Victoria Island when the rear tire burst at 4:31. The car pulled to the side. Rain began at 4:34. Not light rain. Lagos rain that arrived like somebody had overturned a river in the sky. Water struck the roof. Vehicles slowed. The shoulder of the road disappeared beneath brown water. The driver and an accompanying technician stepped out to assess the tire. Zainab checked her phone. The battery was at 4%. Through the rain, she saw the Crest Point Bank sign less than 300 meters ahead. "I will wait at the branch," she said. "Ma, let me take your umbrella. The wind will carry both of us. Fix the tire." "I will call from inside." She left her bag in the vehicle because she expected to return within minutes. She kept only her phone. By the time she reached the branch, her cream dress had turned darker from the rain. Mud had splashed the lower hem. The mustard scarf clung to her shoulder. Water ran into her sandals. Samuel saw her through the glass at 4:41. He opened the outer door halfway. "Good afternoon, Ma. Hope no problem. My vehicle broke down nearby. I need to charge my phone and make one call." Samuel glanced behind him. Dare was speaking with a wealthy customer near the service desk. "Do you have an account with us, Ma?" "I am Zainab Bello. Please call the executive office or check your internal directory." Samuel blinked. The name was familiar. Before he could respond, Dare approached. "What is delaying you at the door?" Samuel lowered his voice. "Sir, this woman says she is Zainab Bello." Dare looked at her wet dress. Then he looked at the muddy sandals. His mouth curved. "Which Zainab Bello?" "The group CEO," Zainab said. Dare laughed once. It was not a happy sound. "Madam, our group CEO is not walking beside the expressway in rain. My car had a flat tire. Call the office." Zainab held up the phone. The screen flashed 2%, then went black. TT came closer. Zainab looked at her. "Please connect me to the executive transport desk." TT opened her mouth. Dare raised one finger. "Do not encourage this nonsense." "Sir, we can verify," Samuel began. Dare turned sharply. "Did I not give you an instruction this morning?" Samuel fell quiet. Zainab studied Dare's face. "You have my name. You have internal phones. Verification should take less than 2 minutes." Dare leaned closer. "This branch is not a waiting room for every woman Rain has rejected. Carry your wet clothes outside before you stain my floor." A customer near the entrance looked away. Another woman pretended to read a form. Zainab's voice remained low. "You are refusing to verify my identity because of how I look. I am refusing to entertain a ridiculous claim. Those are not the same thing." Dare's eyes hardened. "Samuel, take her outside." Samuel hesitated. "Sir," now Zainab did not struggle. She did not shout. She only looked at Samuel when he opened the door. "My brother, you know this is wrong." Samuel swallowed. "I am sorry, Ma." He guided her beneath the narrow ATM canopy. The rain pushed sideways. Water gathered around the pavement. The broken acrylic board, hidden partly behind a flower stand, stood near her left foot. Zainab stepped back to avoid a splash from a passing vehicle. Her sandal strap snapped. Her heel came down on the sharp acrylic edge. She gasped. Blood appeared immediately. Bisi dropped her cloth. She ran. "Ma, sit down. Sit down first." Bisi knelt in the water without thinking about her trousers. She pulled a clean folded cloth from the side pocket of her apron and pressed it against Zainab's heel. The woman winced. "Glass?" Bisi asked. "Something sharp." Bisi looked towards the broken board. For 1 second, her eyes met Dare's through the glass. He knew, she knew he knew, but he did not move. Samuel, bring the first aid box, Bisi called. Samuel turned towards the security station. Dare opened the door. No, nobody should carry bank property outside. Bisi looked up. Sir, she is bleeding. There is a pharmacy across the road. The road is flooded. Then she should wait for her people. Zainab tried to stand, her damaged sandal folded beneath her foot. Bisi caught her arm. Easy, Ma. The blood had already soaked through the cloth. Bisi looked at her own shoes. The left sole had held since morning. The right heel was cracked but firm. They were ugly, worn, and too important to give away. Her rent was due in 4 days. Her salary was not enough. The contractor would not allow her to work in slippers. She knew all of that. Then she looked at Zainab's foot. Bisi sat on the wet step and untied the laces. Zainab shook her head immediately. No, my daughter. Take them. These are your work shoes. They are the only ones I have, Bisi said. But at least my feet are not bleeding. She removed the thin pieces of carton beneath the insoles and loosened the laces wide. Zainab's feet were slightly smaller, but the shoes could hold well enough. Dare stormed outside. Have you lost your mind? The ruby tie slapped against his shirt as wind pushed rain beneath the canopy. You abandoned my banking hall for this roadside stranger? You were hired to remove dirt, not carry it on your head. Every customer near the entrance stared. Titi stood behind Dare with both arms folded. Bisi remained crouched. She needs to cross to the pharmacy, sir. And that is your business? She was injured here. Dare pointed at Zainab. This woman came to disturb the branch with a borrowed identity. Now you are turning my entrance into a village drama. Zainab lifted her soaked face. My name is Zainab Bello. Dare laughed. Borrow a richer name next time. A silence followed, not because anybody believed him, because nobody wanted to be the next person he noticed. Bisi tied the laces around Zainab's feet. Then she stood barefoot in the rainwater. Her toes curled against the cold pavement. Dare looked down at them with disgust. See yourself. Ordinary cleaner. No proper shoes, no sense. Yet you want to teach management how to run a bank. Bisi's face burned. Still, she did not look away. Sir, I only helped somebody who was hurt. You left your duty post for 3 minutes. You challenged my instruction because she was bleeding. Dare's voice dropped. Poor people are becoming too bold. The moment you give them uniform, they think they have entered society. Something changed in Zainab's eyes. Until that moment, she had been listening like a woman absorbing an insult. Now she listened like a leader receiving evidence. She placed one hand on Bisi's shoulder. My daughter, what is your full name? Bisi Adeyemi. Who employs you? Bright Axis Facility Services. Your staff number? Bisi hesitated. Dare stepped forward. Do not answer her. Zainab looked at him. Why? Because you have no authority here. No, Zainab said. You believe I have no authority here. The difference sat between them. Dare could have stopped. He could have called one internal number. He could have offered a chair, a towel, or even a simple apology. Instead, he chose pride. Titty, call Bright Axis, he said. Tell them their cleaner abandoned duty, violated uniform standards, and embarrassed this branch in front of customers. Busy's breath caught. Sir, please. Now you remember, please? My salary. You should have remembered your salary before removing your shoes for somebody who cannot even buy slippers. Zainab's jaw tightened. Bisi stared at Dare for a moment. Then she bent and picked up the 2 wet carton pieces from the ground. Come, Ma, she said. The pharmacy stood across a service lane and beyond a flooded junction. Samuel brought an old umbrella from the security station despite Dare's warning. Take this, he said. Dare snapped his fingers. Samuel froze. The umbrella remained halfway between his hand and Bisi's. Bank property, Dare said. Samuel slowly lowered it. Shame covered his face. Bisi did not insult him. That almost made it worse. She put Zainab's arm around her shoulder and stepped into the rain barefoot. The rough pavement scratched her soles. Water hid stones, bottle caps, and pieces of gravel. Each step made her move carefully, but she did not release Zainab. Behind the glass, Dare watched them cross. When they reached the pharmacy, the attendant brought a stool and antiseptic. The cut was not deep enough for stitches, but a thin acrylic fragment had entered the heel. It took 6 minutes to remove. Zainab held the edge of the counter while the attendant cleaned the wound. Bisi stood beside her in borrowed rubber slippers the pharmacist had found beneath a shelf. "My daughter," Zainab said, "you may lose your work because of me." Bisi forced a small smile. Maybe he was only angry. "You do not believe that." Bisi looked through the pharmacy window at the bank. "I have worked there for 14 months. Ogadir does not become less angry after he has had time to think." "Why do you stay?" Bisi gave a soft laugh. "Because landlords do not accept dignity as rent." Zainab studied her. "What course are you doing?" Bisi looked surprised. "How did you know I am studying?" "You have a pen in your apron. You wrote the time of the injury on the pharmacy receipt. People who do that are usually training for something." Bisi glanced at the receipt. "Customer Service Foundation. Evening class. What do you want to do with it?" "I want to enter front office work one day. Maybe reception. Maybe customer support. But I am managing for now." The attendant finished the bandage. Zainab asked for the pharmacy phone. She dialed the executive transport desk from memory. When the call connected, her voice changed only slightly. "This is Zainab Bello. Send another vehicle to the pharmacy beside the Lekki branch. Also, contact Grace Williams. Tell her I need an evidence preservation order on the branch before 5:30. Bisi looked at her. The attendant stopped arranging medicine. Zainab continued. "No, do not call the branch manager. Freeze edits to incident reports. Secure CCTV from 4:20 onward. Pull door access logs and telephone records. I will send the details from another device." She ended the call. Bisi's borrowed slippers suddenly felt too small. "Ma!" Zainab turned. "You are really the group CEO?" "Yes." Bisi stepped back. Ah, that one sound carried fear, confusion, and a new kind of worry. Zainab understood. "Do not be afraid of me." "I am not afraid of you, Ma. I am afraid of what will happen now." "What do you think will happen?" "They will say I knew who you were. They will say, I did it for favor. Did you?" "No, Ma." "Then we will protect the truth." Bisi looked at the black shoes on Zainab's feet. They looked older against the cream dress. "I did not give you those shoes because of your position," Bisi said quietly. "I know. If you were selling groundnuts, I would still have helped you. I know that too." Outside, a black bank vehicle stopped near the pharmacy. The driver entered and lowered his head. "Madam CEO, I am sorry, Ma, the tire. It was an accident. Bring my bag." He returned with the leather bag. Zainab removed her identification card and held it for Bisi to see. There was no triumph on her face, only tiredness. "Bisi, I need your staff number." Bisi gave it. "I need the name of your site supervisor." She gave that too. "Did you report the broken sign?" "On Wednesday, Ma Samuel entered it in the safety log." "Good. Good? Not that the sign was broken. Good that there is a record." Zainab removed cash from her purse and paid for the treatment. Then she turned to the attendant. "Please write the exact time she arrived and the nature of the injury." The attendant nodded quickly. Bisi stepped closer. "Ma, should I return to work?" Zainab looked through the window. "Yes. Collect your bag and any personal documents. Do not sign a statement you know is false. If anybody suspends you, ask for it in writing. What if they refuse? Write down the time they refused." Bisi breathed in. She was still afraid, but fear felt different when somebody had given it instructions. At 5:23, Bisi entered the bank in the borrowed slippers. The customer hall was nearly empty. Dare stood inside his office with Titi. The glass door was closed, but their gestures were sharp. Bisi went towards the staff locker. "Stop there," Dare said. He came out carrying a printed form. "You will sign this before you touch anything." Bisi read the first paragraph. It stated that an unidentified woman had attempted to gain access to a restricted banking area. That was false. The second paragraph said Bisi had left the branch without permission and accepted money from the woman. That was also false. The third said she had removed mandatory protective footwear inside the banking hall for personal dramatic display. Bisi looked up. Sir, I cannot sign this. Dare's mouth tightened. Cannot? The woman did not enter any restricted area. She did not give me money, and she was injured by the broken sign. TT stepped forward. You are a cleaner, not an investigator. I am the person you are writing about, and you will sign what management recorded. Bisi placed the paper on the desk. No, Ma. TT's eyes widened. Dare laughed without humor. Look at this one. One afternoon of charity has made her a lawyer. He pulled out his phone. Bright Access Facility Services? He said when the call connected. This is Dare Coker at Crestpoint Bank. Your staff member Bisi Adeyemi has committed serious misconduct. Suspend her access immediately. Bisi's face changed. Sir, please allow me to explain to them. Dare turned away. Yes, abandonment of duty, disruption, uniform violation, possible solicitation from a person attempting false representation. Bisi's hands began to tremble. TT watched. For a moment, something like discomfort crossed her face. Then she buried it. Dare ended the call. Your access card. Bisi held it against her chest. Sir, I have 13 days' salary remaining. That is between you and your employer. My rent is due. That is between you and your landlord. I did not do anything wrong. That is between you and your poverty. The words landed harder than a slap. Bisi slowly removed the card from her lanyard. Samuel stood near the door. He wanted to speak. He did not. Dare took the card and dropped it into a drawer. Collect your things and leave. Bisi walked to the locker room. She put her notebook, water bottle, spare hair scarf, and coarse handout inside a faded tote bag. When she returned, Dare and Titi had gone back into the office. Samuel opened the staff door for her. Bisi. She stopped. I am sorry. She looked at him. For which one? Samuel had no answer. Bisi stepped outside. The rain had reduced to a steady drizzle. Across the road, the pharmacy lights glowed. Inside Dare's office, a notification appeared on his computer screen. Remender. Group CEO Zainab Bello to attend Custmoder Dignity Week launch. Dare stared at the name. His fingers stopped moving. He clicked the attached profile. The photograph loaded. Cream dress replaced by a cobalt suit. Mustard scarf replaced by a white blouse. But the face was the same. The woman he had thrown into the rain. The woman he had told to borrow a richer name. Titi leaned over his shoulder. Her breath caught. Sir. Dare closed the office blinds. Then he whispered, Nobody must know what happened here. Dare did not sleep that night. He drove home at 8:12, parked beneath the apartment block, and remained inside his car for 23 minutes with the engine running. Rain slid down the windscreen. His mind moved faster than the wipers. He had not merely refused shelter to a senior executive. He had insulted her beneath a banner about dignity. He had allowed a known safety hazard to injure her. He had punished the only worker who helped. And there were other things. Complaints Dare had closed without investigation. Customer notes he had edited. Contract workers whose shifts disappeared after they spoke against him. Small actions, each one easy to excuse when separated. Together, they formed a pattern. Titi called at 8:39. Sir, what are we going to do? You already know what to do. No, sir. I know what you said. I am asking whether we should not call her and apologize. Dare gripped the steering wheel. Apologize for what? Titi went silent. If we apologize, he continued, we confirm everything. The branch report must show that security responded to an unidentified person making an unverified claim. Bisi abandoned her post and escalated the situation. That is all. But Madame Zainab knows what happened. Her version is still a version. She is the group CEO, and she is not the CCTV camera. Dare's voice became colder. Go back to the branch. Update the incident report before the system locks overnight. Remove the line about the broken sign. Write that the injury occurred after the woman had left bank premises. Sir! Titi, you want the deputy branch recommendation or not? Her breathing changed. Yes, sir. Then stop squeezing your face and do what protects this branch. At 9:17, Titi logged into the incident portal from her laptop. She opened the report Samuel had started. The original note was short. At approximately 4:50 p.m., Female visitor removed from lobby on branch manager's instruction. Visitor suffered heel injury near damaged promotional board. Cleaner Bisi Adeyemi provided assistance. Titi deleted the last two sentences. She replaced them with visitor became distressed after being denied access to a restricted area and later reported a minor injury outside bank-controlled premises. Contract cleaner left assigned post and engaged visitor despite instruction. She stared at the screen. Then she added, possible exchange of cash observed but unconfirmed. Her finger hovered above submit. She knew there had been no cash. She clicked. At 9:24, Dare approved the edited report. At 9:31, he called Samuel. The security guard answered from a crowded bus. Sir? Return to the branch. Now, sir. Yes, now. Samuel arrived at 10:08. Dare took him into the camera room. I need the afternoon playback removed from the local system. Samuel's stomach tightened. Sir, recordings sync to the regional server every 15 minutes. I said, local system. Why, sir? Dare moved close enough for Samuel to smell mint on his breath, because the camera angle shows a customer injury, and we do not want misleading images circulating before investigation. But if ethics asks, did ethics employ you? No, sir. Did I approve the renewal of your contract last year? Yes, sir. Then use wisdom. Samuel looked at the monitor. He remembered Zainab saying, my brother, you know this is wrong. He also remembered the hospital bills he helped pay for his mother every month. He remembered that 6 years of contract work had given him no savings and no protection. Fear sat on one shoulder. Shame sat on the other. Samuel deleted the local playback shortcut. The server recording remained untouched because he had no authority to remove it. Dare then placed the paper safety log on the table. Rewrite today's entry. Samuel stared at him. Sir, the report now states that the woman was injured off the premises, but the board... Do you want to join Bisi outside? Samuel picked up his pen. His hand shook. He copied the new version onto another page. Dare tore out the original. He folded it twice and put it inside his jacket pocket. What he did not see was Samuel's phone rested face up beside the monitor, recording the room's audio because Samuel had switched it on before entering. What he also did not know was that Samuel had already taken a photograph of the original page when Bisi reported the broken board on Wednesday. By 11:26, Bisi was back in her room. She sat on the mattress with the borrowed slippers beside her feet. Her tote bag rested unopened near the wall. The room felt smaller than it had that morning. At 11:41, Bright Axis Facility Services sent a message. Your employment is suspended pending misconduct review. Final wage balance of 13 working days will be held until conclusion. Bisi read it 3 times. Her landlord had already warned that rent must not cross Monday. Her course tutor had announced a materials payment due the following week. She had 9,240 naira saved. Rent alone was 45,000. For the first time since leaving the bank, Bisi cried, not loudly. She bent forward, pressed both palms against her face, and allowed the tears to fall into her lap. After some minutes, her phone rang. The number was unknown. Bisi wiped her face before answering, as if the caller could see her. Hello? This is Grace Williams from Crest Point Bank Ethics and Conduct. Bisi sat straighter. Good evening, Ma. I understand you were suspended today. Yes, Ma. Did you receive a written reason? Only a message. Keep it. Do not delete anything. Do you have notes of what happened? Bisi looked at the notebook inside her tote bag. Yes, Ma. Bring them tomorrow at 8:30. Do not sign any statement tonight. Do not discuss the matter in staff groups. And if anybody offers you money or asks you to change your account, record the details immediately. Bisi swallowed. Ma, am I in trouble? Grace paused. You are in a process. Whether that process becomes fair will depend on evidence. Bring yours. The call ended. Bisi opened her notebook. She wrote down the exact time Grace called. Then she began from the beginning. 4:41 p.m. Woman entered during heavy rain. 4:44 p.m. Woman gave name Zainab Bello. 4:46 please. Mr. Dare refused verification. 4:49 p.m. Security escorted woman outside. 4:50 p.m. Sandal broke near damaged sign. 4:52 p.m. Heel injury observed. 4:55 p.m. Left for pharmacy. 5:23 p.m. Returned to branch. 5:31 p.m. Refused false statement. 5:36 p.m. Access card taken. She wrote until 1:14 in the morning. At 6:32 she woke to another call. Dare. Bisi stared at the screen until it stopped. He called again. She answered. Report to my office by 7:30, he said. We can settle this matter before outsiders misunderstand it. What settlement, sir? Come and hear. The line went dead. Bisi reached the branch at 7:24, wearing her brown rubber sandals, the ones with the stretched strap. The borrowed slippers had been returned to the pharmacy on her way. Samuel opened the gate. His eyes were red. Bisi, after your meeting, I need to speak with you. About what? He looked towards Dare's office. After. Dare sat behind his desk when Bisi entered. Titi stood near the filing cabinet. On the desk were three things: a white shoebox, a brown envelope, a printed statement. Dare leaned back. Sit. Bisi remained standing. Sir, I was told to meet ethics at 8:30. That is why we must clear confusion before then. He opened the shoebox. Inside lay a pair of cheap black work shoes. The synthetic leather shone too brightly. A paper label still hung from one lace. Your old shoes are gone, Dare said. Take these. Bisi looked at the envelope. Dare pushed it forward. 75,000 naira, enough for rent and your small school. Titi avoided Bisi's eyes. What do I have to do? Bisi asked. Do not talk as if this is a crime. Sign the corrected statement. It says the visitor became aggressive. The injury happened after she left the premises, and you misunderstood management instruction. Bisi picked up the paper. Another line stated that Dare had never insulted the visitor or any staff member. Bisi read it twice. Sir, this is not what happened. Dare's voice hardened. What happened is already costing you your job. I am offering you a solution. Why now? Because I do not want one emotional incident to destroy everybody. Bisi looked at the new shoes. Her toes ached inside the old sandals. She looked at the envelope. 75,000 nara. Rent. Course materials. Transport. Food. For a few seconds, the room seemed to narrow around that envelope. Dare noticed. His tone softened. Take it, Bisi. People at your level do not reject solutions. Bisi's hand moved towards the paper. Titi released a breath. Then Bisi asked, if that woman was not your CEO, would you still be offering me an apology today? Dare froze. Titi's head lifted. Bisi now knew that both of them knew. She continued, if she was selling groundnuts outside, would you buy me shoes? If she had no office to call, would you care that she bled? Dare's face darkened. This is not a classroom. Sign. Answer me, sir. You are becoming disrespectful. Would you? The silence gave the answer. Bisi placed the statement on the envelope. No, sir. Dare stood. Do you think the CEO will carry you on her head because you gave her one useless pair of shoes? By next month, she will forget your name. But I can make sure no cleaning company in Lagos touches your application. Bisi's heart pounded. Still, she stepped away from the desk. Then let them reject me with the truth. She turned towards the door. Titi spoke. Bisi, use sense. Pride does not pay rent. Bisi looked back. Neither does a lie. It only borrows peace and sends a bigger bill later. She left. At 7:58, Titi took a photograph through the glass as Bisi crossed the lobby in her worn brown sandals. She posted it in the private staff group. Our charity ambassador has arrived for another performance. 3 laughing emojis appeared, then 6. A young teller added one, removed it after 2 minutes, and went silent. Samuel saw the message. Something inside him broke. He found Bisi near the back corridor. Come. Where? Not here. They stepped into the loading area behind the branch. Samuel held out his phone. On the screen was a photograph of the original safety log. Bisi read it. The damaged board had been recorded 2 days before Zainab's injury. Then Samuel played the audio from the camera room. Dare's voice came clearly. Rewrite today's entry. Samuel's own frightened voice followed. But the board, do you want to join BC outside? BC looked at him. You recorded this? Yes. After you pushed her outside. Samuel lowered the phone. Yes. After you refused to give us the umbrella. His face tightened. Yes. Why did you not speak then? My mother is sick. My contract can end with one call. 6 years, BC. No permanent letter. No option. Nothing. BC listened. She understood fear. Understanding did not remove the harm. Fear may explain why you obeyed, she said. It does not remove that woman's blood from the pavement. Samuel nodded slowly. I know. What will you do with the recording? I wanted to give it to you. No. He looked confused. Send it yourself and tell them what you did too. If I tell them everything, I can lose my job. If you hide your own part, then you are still doing the same thing Dare asked you to do. Samuel's eyes filled, but he did not cry. He opened the ethics reporting link. Before pressing send, he asked, Will you forgive me? BC shook her head. Today is not about forgiveness. Today is about truth. At 8:30, Grace Williams entered the branch with two members of the ethics and conduct team. She was 46, dressed in a dark navy suit, and carried no expression that Dare could read. Dare hurried forward. Madam Grace, good morning. I was expecting to brief you privately. You will, Grace said. After we secure the records, she collected the incident report, access logs, camera references, staff messages, and vendor maintenance history. She interviewed BC first, then Samuel, Titi, and Dare separately. By 10:17, Grace had confirmed 4 facts. The branch had received Bissi's warning about the damaged sign. No call was made to verify Zainab's identity. Bissi's access had been suspended before any investigation. The incident report had been edited after Dare viewed Zainab's executive profile. That should have been enough to make Dare quiet. Instead, it made him more desperate. He told Grace that Bisi was emotionally unstable. He claimed Samuel resented him over a rejected permanent role. He described Titi's report as independent. Then Grace asked for the last 12 months of closed service complaints. Dare's face changed. Why? Because this incident may be part of a pattern. There is no pattern. Grace looked at him. Then the records will help you. By midday, the ethics team found 23 complaints closed without proper response. 11 came from small traders, elderly customers, or people who described being treated differently because of their appearance. 6 contract workers had lost shifts after reporting managers. 4 customer surveys had been removed because the respondents were classified as low-value accounts. 2 complaints described Dare using the phrase, know your level. The branch's excellent satisfaction score had not been earned, it had been cleaned. At the group office, Zainab sat across from Grace during a secure video call. Her heel was bandaged. Bisi's black shoes rested beside her chair. Grace explained the findings. When she finished, Zainab did not speak immediately. A clock ticked behind her. Finally, she asked, how do outsourced workers report a branch manager? Through their contractor or the branch escalation route? And if the branch manager controls the contractor relationship? Grace's silence answered. Zainab leaned back. She remembered signing the cost reduction framework 18 months earlier when she was chief risk officer. The structure had saved money. It had also placed people like Bisi and Samuel under managers who could remove them with one phone call. We created a complaint channel, Zainab said slowly, then handed the key to the person being complained about. Grace nodded. This is not only Dare's failure. No, Zainab said. A bad manager caused the wound. A weak system allowed it to remain open. She looked at the shoes beside her. Proceed with a formal review. Preserve everybody's right to answer. Nobody is to be dismissed today. Grace raised an eyebrow. Even Dare? Especially Dare. I do not want anger to produce the same abuse of power we are investigating. What about tomorrow's launch? Zainab's eyes rested on the words Custom Honored Dignity Week in the event brief. We will hold it. Grace waited, but not the event they prepared. That evening, Dare rehearsed his speech beneath the cobalt banner. He had convinced himself that there was still a path out. The CCTV had no audio. The report could be described as clerical error. Samuel was only a contract guard. Bisi was only a cleaner. Titi would not betray him because her own name was on the edits. He adjusted his ruby tie and stood before the empty chairs. At Crest Point Bank, dignity is not a privilege. The rear door opened. Grace entered with two sealed evidence cases. One contained printed records. The other contained Bisi's repaired black shoes. Dare stopped speaking. Grace placed the transparent case on the front table. Tomorrow, she said, you will read your incident report aloud. Dare's throat moved. To whom? Grace looked towards the entrance. Zainab Bello stepped inside wearing a bright cobalt suit. The room became still. To everybody, she said. The following morning, every chair in the branch training hall was occupied. Tellers sat beside cleaners. Customer service officers sat beside security guards. Representatives from Bright Axis Facility Services occupied the second row. Three queues whose complaints had been closed without investigation sat near the aisle. Nobody understood why they had been invited. Dare stood near the front with Titi. His suit was perfectly pressed, but sweat had gathered beneath his collar. Bisi entered at 8:22 in her aqua shirt, orange apron, and brown sandals. The staff group became quiet. Some people who had sent laughing emojis looked at the floor. Bisi sat at the back. Grace walked to the podium at exactly 8:30. Good morning. This is not the Customer Dignity Week launch previously scheduled. This is an ethics review concerning conduct at this branch. A murmur moved through the room. The side door opened. Zainab entered. Her cobalt suit seemed to bring color into the gray hall. Her mustard scarf was gone. Her hair was neatly tied back. A small bandage remained beneath one shoe. She wore the repaired black shoes Bisi had given her. Dare saw them first. His face lost color. Titi's pen slipped from her hand and struck the floor. Zainab reached the front and looked across the room. My name is Zainab Bello, Group Chief Executive Officer of Crest Point Bank. She paused. The same name this branch found easier to laugh at than to verify. Nobody moved. Dare stepped forward. Madam CEO, please, I can explain. There was a security misunderstanding. Zainab lifted one hand. You will have time to explain, but first, you will listen. She turned towards the evidence table. Yesterday, I entered this branch during heavy rain after my vehicle suffered a flat tire 286 meters away. I asked to charge my phone and make one internal call. I gave my name. No verification attempt was made. Dare swallowed. Zainab continued. I was removed from the lobby. I was injured beside a damaged sign already reported by staff. The only person who came to help me was a contract cleaner whose job was later suspended. She looked towards Bisi. Please stand. Bisi rose slowly. Zainab did not ask her to come forward yet. She looked back at Dare. You told me you were protecting the branch. Yes, Ma, we receive impersonators. I was only following protocol. Which protocol prevented you from making one internal call? Dare opened his mouth. Nothing came. Zainab's voice remained calm. Why did your security procedure become polite only after you saw my photograph? The silence grew heavier. Dare finally said, I made a judgment error, Ma. I am deeply sorry. Zainab studied him. You are not ashamed because a woman was injured. You are afraid because the injured woman can affect your career. The words struck the room cleanly. Dare's shoulders dropped. Grace placed the incident report in front of him. Read it aloud. Dare looked at her. Madam Grace, read the report you approved. His hands trembled as he lifted the pages. At approximately 4:45 p.m., an unidentified female visitor attempted to gain access to a restricted area. Grace pressed a remote. The screen behind them displayed the lobby camera. Zainab stood near the public entrance. She never crossed the security line. Grace spoke. No attempt to enter a restricted area is visible. Continue. Dare's voice weakened. The visitor became distressed and was escorted outside in line with security procedure. The video showed Dare pointing at the door while Zainab stood still. It showed Samuel opening the door. It showed no aggressive movement. Grace changed the image. Telephone records appeared. No internal call was made to verify identity, she said. Continue. Dare wiped his upper lip. The visitor later reported a minor injury outside bank-controlled premises. Another video played. Zainab's sandal broke beside the promotional board. She stepped back. Her body jerked when the acrylic cut her heel. Bisi ran forward. The room watched Bisi kneel in the rain. They watched her remove her shoes. They watched Dare stand beneath the canopy and shout, though the camera carried no sound. That silence was worse than shouting. Grace displayed the maintenance log. The damaged sign was reported 2 days earlier. The branch manager instructed staff to conceal it behind a flower stand instead of removing it. Dare looked towards Titi. Titi looked away. He continued reading. Possible exchange of cash was observed between the visitor and contract cleaner. The video showed no money, only shoes. Grace placed the 75,000 naira envelope on the table. The first cash connected to this incident appeared this morning when Mr. Coker offered it to Bisi Adeyemi in exchange for a changed statement. A gasp moved through the hall. Dare turned sharply. That is a lie. Bisi lifted her phone. I wrote the time, sir, 7:42. The envelope, the shoebox, and the statement were on your table. TD spoke too quickly. He told me it was assistance. I did not know he wanted to buy her silence. Dare faced her. You brought the statement. Because you ordered me. You edited the report. Because you threatened my promotion. Their alliance collapsed in less than 30 seconds. Grace displayed the system history. T.T. Johnson entered the false report. Dare Coker approved it 9 minutes later. Both actions are recorded. Then Samuel's audio filled the hall. Rewrite today's entry. But the board, do you want to join BC outside? Samuel closed his eyes. When the recording ended, Grace called him forward. Did you escort Madame Zainab outside? Yes, Ma. Did you believe she was a threat? No, Ma. Why did you obey? Samuel looked at BC, then at the floor. I was afraid of losing my work. Did you refuse BC the umbrella? Yes. Did you later preserve evidence? Yes. Grace nodded once. Your cooperation will be considered. So will your earlier conduct. Truth does not erase responsibility. It allows responsibility to begin. Samuel returned to his seat. Zainab called Bisi forward. Bisi walked slowly, aware of every eye in the room. Tell us what you believe happened here, Zainab said. Bisi looked at the banner behind the podium. Every customer deserves dignity. Then she looked at the staff. Yesterday, everybody was asking whether that woman belonged inside this bank. Nobody asked whether the way we treated her belonged inside any decent place. A woman in the second row lowered her head. Bisi continued. Some people insulted me. Some people obeyed. Some people watched. Some people pressed a laughing symbol and went home. Every one of those choices helped the same thing happen. The young teller who had removed her emoji began to cry silently. Bisi did not point at her. She turned towards Dare. I did not help Madame Zainab because she was CEO. I did not know. If she had been selling groundnuts, she would still have been bleeding. If she had no office, her pain would still be pain. Dare squeezed his face. This is becoming emotional theater, he muttered. Zainab heard him. No, she said. This is accountability. Grace changed the screen again. A presentation slide appeared. Congratulations, Dare Coker, Regional Surface Director nominee. Dare stared at it. Then a red line appeared beneath the title. Withdrawn, pending disciplinary proceedings. The hall went completely still. Dare's mouth opened. Ma, please. My entire career. Zainab looked at him. Yesterday, Bisi told you her salary and rent were at risk. What did you say? Dare could not answer. Grace did. You said that was between her and her poverty. Dare lowered his eyes. Zainab's voice was quiet. Now your career is between you and your conduct. There was no cheering. There did not need to be. Justice was already speaking. Grace announced that Dare and Titi were suspended from management duties pending formal disciplinary review. Their system access would be disabled immediately. Bright Axis was instructed to restore Bisi's pay and refrain from retaliation. All 23 closed complaints would be reopened. Dare moved towards his office. His access card touched the scanner. A red light flashed. Access denied. He tried again. Red. The same door system he had used to remove Bisi now refused him. Dare stood there with his expensive suit, ruby tie, gold watch, and no authority. Nobody moved to help. Zainab then faced the room. Do not make the mistake of believing one bad manager created all of this alone. Mr. Coker abused power. Madame Titi converted that abuse into official records. Mr. Samuel obeyed when he knew better. Others watched. She took a breath. But leadership created a system where contract workers could only complain through the same managers controlling their livelihoods. I approved part of that structure in my former role. That responsibility is mine. Grace looked at her. The admission had not been rehearsed. Zainab continued. A bad manager caused this wound. A weak system allowed it to remain open. She ordered the customer dignity banner removed. Titi looked confused. Ma, the message is good. Yes, Zainab replied. That is why this branch has not earned the right to display it yet. 7 weeks later, the disciplinary panel released its findings. Dare Coker was found responsible for systematic discrimination, falsification of service records, retaliation against a contract worker, interference with evidence, and concealment of complaints. His employment ended after the full hearing. He was not arrested. No imaginary financial crime was added to make the punishment dramatic. He lost what his own conduct had placed at risk: his office, promotion, reputation, and authority over others. Titi was removed as operations supervisor and suspended without pay. She returned months later to a non-management role after completing an ethics program and writing formal apologies to the people affected. Samuel received a written warning for following an improper instruction. His evidence and full cooperation were also recorded. After training and review, he was moved to a direct security contract with clearer protection for reporting misconduct. Bisi received all 13 days of withheld salary, compensation for the wrongful suspension, and a proper pair of protective work shoes as an employment entitlement. Not charity, a right. Crestpoint Bank paid the remaining fees for her Customer Service Foundation course. She was not made a manager overnight. She was not handed millions of naira. She completed 6 months of supervised training before moving into a customer environment assistant role. Her work still involved the lobby, but now she also helped elderly customers, recorded safety risks, supported people who needed assistance, and submitted concerns from contract staff directly to ethics and conduct. Across 37 branches, Crestpoint introduced an independent complaint line for outsourced workers, anti-retaliation rules, identity verification procedures, safety audits, and training on appearance-based bias. The 23 closed complaints were reopened. Some were upheld, some were not, but every person finally received an answer. 10 months after the rainstorm, Zainab invited Bisi to her office. On the table sat a brown cardboard box. Inside were the old black shoes. The soles had been repaired properly. The scratches remained. Zainab pushed the box towards her. These belong to you. Bisi touched one shoe gently. Why did you keep them so long, Ma? Because people turned your kindness into misconduct. I wanted the evidence of that kindness protected. Bisi smiled. They are still ugly. Zainab laughed. Yes. But they told the truth. Some weeks later, Bisi stood before a new group of branch employees during a dignity and service training session. She placed the old shoes on the table. She did not tell them to be kind because a poor-looking woman might secretly be powerful. That lesson was too cheap. Instead, she told them about rain, silence, fear, and one bleeding heel. Then she asked a question. Would our behavior still have been wrong if she had never returned as CEO? Nobody answered immediately. A young employee slowly closed the notebook in front of him. The room became quiet, and in that quiet, the real lesson finally entered. For me, the most pain part of this story was not that a CEO was thrown into the rain. It was that many people only became uncomfortable after they discovered her title. BC's kindness would still have been right if Zainab had been unemployed, homeless, or forgotten by the whole city. A person should not need power before we recognize her pain. The true measure of character is how we treat those who cannot reward us, promote us, or punish us.